Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to your daily sit rep for Tuesday, the 23rd of September, 2025. I'm your host, Mike Shelby. Robert, good morning. Let's go ahead and jump inside the Beltway here. Starting with the latest from the shutdown. Robert, has anything changed from yesterday in terms of your outlook on whether we will or will not have a shutdown?
I think it's going to depend on how this meeting goes. So apparently Democrats are meeting with Trump on Thursday to discuss any attempts to avert it. I think depending on the risk is going to depend on if some of the Republican leaders from the House and Senate attend the meeting or not.
Okay. All right. You know what? I'll just let you take it away. Go ahead, Robert.
So during a private call yesterday, some House Republicans and family members of House lawmakers raised some issues about security spending shortfalls, and they're saying that there are concerns over restrictions on how this new and currently existing security funding could be used. Apparently, there are different types of security equipment that this money can and cannot be spent on. And a GOP official said during this call that in order to change this and alleviate some of these concerns over lawmaker security, they would require some new legislation. And then moving over to the domestic side, the Department of Homeland Security sent letters out to attorneys general of California, Illinois, New York, and said it's going to pursue all appropriate measures with the Department of Justice to end the state sanctuary policies. And according to this announcement from the DHS, only Illinois and New York responded, and they refused to honor ICE detainers. And those ICE detainers are bulletins put out where states notify ICE that criminal illegal aliens are set to be released either on bail or at the end of their sentence. And then yesterday, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said Pennsylvania is preparing to leave this major grid operator PJM interconnection due to surging power bills. This was at a summit that he hosted called the Summit of the State of PJM Interconnection. Lawmakers and panelists on the summit also said that other states threatening to leave the PJM grid carry greater urgency now because they said that the PJM grid is at an inflection point where prices are surging and the demand is being ramped up by a lot of these data centers being built in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland.
Robert, let me just cut in real quick. You've been talking about this for years. And even back in 2023, I did a whole hour-long presentation on power shortages, which are here. We're running into them now. Being that you have been talking about PJM, and everyone knows what the problem is, there's kind of two things, right? There's these AI data centers that are just sapping up a lot of, pretty much all the excess capacity. They've done that. And now demand is outstripping supply. And then on the other side, you've had this Clean Power Plan 2.0. 1.0 started under Obama. Biden brought it back. They brought down a bunch of coal and fossil fuel fired power plants, replaced them with less reliable, quote unquote, green energy power production facilities. And surely, this is something that was known under the Biden administration, that these AI data centers would be going up. The superscalers would be creating massive amounts of power demand, and yet they continued to move ahead, pushing us into this power shortage. My question to you is, do these Democrats like Shapiro ever stop and consider why they're running into this problem, not just these emergency actions that they need to take now to avert this problem? And I don't even know how they avert the problem, because it's not like they can hop on someone else's. Where are they going to get their power from?
Well, yeah, the problem, so the Trump administration has been trying to improve permitting for new power generation, new baseload power generation. Now the problem that utilities are going to run into is the state level permitting process, especially in these Democrat states. I think they're caught between a rock and a hard place, because on one side they recognize, and even during the Biden administration, there were some state level officials, even in the Democrat controlled states, talking about the coming power problem. But then they're under a lot of pressure from the activist side of the Democratic Party not to allow more fossil fuel power generation to be built. So they're saying the problem is here, and they don't really have a solution for it. At the federal level, they've just been basically ordering these power plants that are supposed to shut down in these states to remain online indefinitely, or at least indefinitely, every time they renew those power orders.
You know what we ought to do is find all the people who don't want new power generation plants going up and disconnect them from the grid, and they can just have their own. They can put up little solar panels on their roof for their energy. If we shouldn't have to suffer, or folks in the Mid Atlantic rather. We don't have a big problem here yet. All right. At any rate, thanks for that, Robert. Let's go ahead and do this screwworm update as well.
So yesterday, the USDA announced that New World screwworm is now less than 70 miles south of the U.S.-Mexico border. They've detected it in Sabinas Hidalgo, a town in the state of Nuevo Leon, Mexico. This is now the northernmost detection of New World screwworm, because the previous one was 370 miles south of the border. USDA did say in this announcement that they're going to take decisive action to protect U.S. cattle herds from this infection, even without Mexican authorities' cooperation. They also said something interesting that I think is hitting at possibly agroterrorism concerns in the administration. They said that furthermore, they are going to pursue aggressive measures against anyone who harms American livestock. So I think this hints that they're having possibly cooperation issues with Mexican authorities over the New World screwworm infections, and concerned that someone could weaponize this infection.
So that would be taking a shoebox of these screwworms and then getting them over the border in the United States and dumping them on some cattle ranch somewhere.
Yes.
Potentially. All right. Thanks for that, Robert. Let's go ahead and move on to the global sit rep, starting with this U.S. Arab summit today. I guess U.S. officials are going to try to talk Egypt out of going to war with Israel.
Does not look that way, actually. So this is going to happen on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly that's happening in New York. Tons of stuff happening around it. But anyway, the U.S. is reportedly going to hold a meeting with Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, Turkey, and the UAE, United Arab Emirates, on those sidelines today. And this is per sources familiar with the matter, they're claiming that this is going to focus on Gaza the day after Israel's war. So rebuilding efforts, not necessarily stopping an escalation, which we're about to get into, but what happens next. And on that note, in a New Year's address to the IDF General Staff and the Defense Minister, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told all of them, quoting, "We need to destroy the Iranian axis. This is what stands before us in the coming year." So that's until about 11 September 2026 that they intend to accomplish that. He also added that it's entirely within Israel's capabilities to eliminate the Iranian axis, and that this year will also see the elimination of Hamas, release of their hostages, or ensuring that Gaza never gains constitutes a threat to Israel. Again, quoting there. So they're going for total victory this year, and I think that necessitates an expansion of the war, particularly if they're going to destroy the Iranian axis. That you can't do that without fighting Iran again.
So wait, hang on. If they're going to destroy the Iranian axis, that includes multiple countries in the Middle East. Whatever's left of the Iranian axis in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, throw in, I guess maybe technically throw in Gaza and the West Bank in there.
And probably the Houthis down in Yemen as well. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So in other words, all the hand-wringing over bringing the war down, and you have people like us saying this war's not going to end. Netanyahu cannot end this war, according to Netanyahu. It's not going to end, and now it looks like it's not going to end.
Yeah, for at least the next year. He appears to have no intention of ending it. He will end it. He intends to end it through destruction of enemies, but not through diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And then speaking on expanding wars, a couple of updates from Poland here. The Polish Prime Minister announced the beginning of a new annual civilian defense training program. They're going to start with 5,000 this year because it's kind of late, but they're going to ramp up to 100,000 civilians trained per year starting in 2027. This is going to focus on all kinds of emergency stuff that you'd expect: medical assistance, emergency preparedness, conflict response, cyber defense, and is being run by the territorial defense forces there. So kind of in between civilian and military. And that's going to run until 2039. So they're expecting a continuous rotation of this. for at least the next 15 years.
It's somewhat surprising that, and I don't know what Poland has done previously, but it's somewhat surprising that they've only established a civilian defense effort starting in 2027, because in the Baltics, we have seen for 10 years now, U.S. has been sending special operations forces to train Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and basically stay behind operations, guerrilla warfare, on the assumption that the Russians are just going to roll right into these countries, and there's not much that NATO is going to be able to do to stop the Russians, except for running an insurgency campaign during the occupation here. So it's somewhat surprising that they've been doing this for a decade, and Poland is not even on the ball yet. They don't start till 2027.
Yeah. Well, they're starting this year. They're going to have 5,000 this year, 30,000 next year, 100,000 in 2027.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're just phasing it in. And it does seem like this is non-voluntary. I would expect Poland probably had a voluntary one prior to this, because they had territorial defense forces, which are not necessarily the army.
All right.
And then several NATO officials, including the prime minister of Poland again, warned Russia that they're going to just, like, they are completely within their rights to shoot down Russian airplanes that are incurring on their airspace. The Polish were the most explicit, saying we will shoot down any craft violating our airspace. That's drones and jets. Sweden's defense minister said that Sweden has the right to defend its airspace, but that is by force if necessary, and they will defend it. And then just this morning at the UNGA, Secretary of State Marco Rubio reiterated that the U.S. will quoting, work with our allies to defend every inch of NATO territory. So again, providing that's probably not shooting planes so much as it is making sure that you conduct a positive identification. Okay. Staying with the U.S.'s actions, the U.S. issued sanctions yesterday on Brazilian Supreme Court Justin Moraes' wife and their holding company for supporting him in, quoting, weaponizing courts, authorizing arbitrary pretrial detentions, and suppressing freedom of expression. Moraes himself was previously sanctioned by the administration, and he's the justice that oversaw Jair Bolsonaro's trial, which the Trump administration has claimed to be illegitimate. Then, staying fairly close to home, the Coast Guard announced last week that Operation Pacific Viper, which has largely gone under the radar, and it's a counter-narcotics mission over in the Eastern Pacific, kind of like right near our coast. They have had 20 interdictions resulting in 75,000 pounds of cocaine being seized just since August 8th in that one area. Honestly, that's an incredible milestone. And the Coast Guard deputy commander for the area says that this is part of a larger effort to dismantle foreign terrorist organizations and transnational criminal organizations engaged in narco trafficking. So this is actually basically a sister operation to what we're seeing down in the Caribbean. And they're taking out, depending on your estimates, $2 to $4 billion worth of cocaine in a single month.
And Jared, this Pacific Viper, is this in response to these cartels shifting their trafficking lanes out of the Caribbean into the United States and moving them over to the Pacific side, or are these two completely separate efforts?
I think it's just two branches of the same overall mission. I don't think it's a response to a shift out of the Caribbean.
Gotcha.
Because the Samson and the Lake Erie moved down from San Diego, and the Samson's still patrolling the Pacific side of Panama as well. They've been doing that for months. Pacific Viper was, spun up over a month ago, and they've been rolling right through it. And then lastly, a quick note on India. The Indian External Affairs Minister and Senator Marco Rubio met on the sidelines of the UNGA, and they again said that, hey, we're going to continue working to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific region, key buzz phrase there, including through the Quad. That's the core of the U.S.-India relationship. So the talk of, India's gone completely off the rails. They're totally on side with Russia and China. Economically and maybe personally, head of state-wise, sure, but as far as their actual, core interests of securing a free and open Indo-Pacific, that has not gone away.
Yeah, China's not their ally, not their friend either. it's not that surprising, but India has been going through this for a couple of years now, going through and trying to eradicate Chinese tech incursion into India, because I think the overwhelming majority, as of 3 years ago, the overwhelming majority of cell phones in use in India were Chinese, which obviously is a huge national security threat if you're talking about potentially going to war with China one day. And so India has been going through and trying to exercise Chinese tech out of India. All right. Which is to say, they really cannot be friends. All right. Thanks for that, Jared. And with that, let's go ahead and move on. 92 protests today, a bit above baseline here. And if you see a yellow dot near you, head over to forwardobserver.com, log into your early warning account, and check our long list and also our interactive map. You can zoom in, see what's going on around you, date, time, location, stuff like that. All right. And then coming up over on our early warning briefing, which is our members only briefing, we're going to talk about the 6 pillars of this coming color revolution. Remember, we're dealing with kind of a 3-phase campaign here. Phase one is protests, which is where we are. On a call last week, they implied this color revolution movement, the leaders of it, implied that they are going to start escalating in the quote unquote months ahead. So it goes from protest, which is where we are today, to organized resistance, which is where we've already seen some low level type direct action and resistance. It is obviously going to ramp up at some point. Maybe that's in the months ahead. That could be 6-12 months ahead. But definitely as we get closer to the midterms. And then the other side of the midterms, it's going to get a little Western in this country again. And then finally, we're dealing potentially with an actual color revolution in 2028, coinciding with the outcome of the presidential election, as color revolutions do. We're going to talk about that. And then also Robert's going to run us through the Homeland Operations SITREP. We're talking about Antifa. We're talking about this executive order that labeled Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. We're going to break it down, and I'm going to tell you the specific challenges the Trump administration is going to have. That's coming up on our members only early warning brief, forwardobserver.com/trial. If you'd like to join us. And Native Texan says he signed up today. Yay. Thanks for being on board. All right, with that, Jared, please take us out. And early warning members, please stand by.